the pickles just taste raw. And that can happen for several reasons. One might be that you simply haven't fermented them long enough. Remember that half sours are just as they sound. They're only about fermented half the length of time as your more traditional full sours. Another potential reason why pickles taste raw, you might just have added too much salt to your brine. Remember, salt slows down fermentation. So if you have an overly salty brine, let's say more than 10%, which would be very, very high, then maybe your pickles just are not fermenting fast enough, because remember, salt slows down the microbial fermentation. Another common symptom is that the mold or yeast forms on the top of the container. And truthfully, this isn't really troubleshooting. This is quite normal. The amount of the top layer, which is exposed to the environment, the air just harbors mold and yeast. So we can mitigate that by covering it using an airlock device or using a water seal crock. For example, look at the previous lessons. And the fix really is just to do some maintenance. Wipe, scrape, scoop all that top layer off. Next thing that can happen is it's just a big hot mess. The whole jar is ruined, whether that's mushy or whether it's moldy. This doesn't happen very often. Most likely, you maybe just didn't use enough salt in your brine. And when you just have water and food source like vegetables, it's a free-for-all. So you could have invited molds and all the different bacteria. So maybe you simply forgot to add salt water and you just added regular water. This does happen. Another thing would be just something got in there, a chunk of dirt, a chunk of soil, or other foreign matter got in there and just wreaked havoc on the microbial ecosystem and could have caused something like that. So if that happens, you can, generally speaking, just throw it out into the compost pile and give it another go. Pickles too soft. This is a very common complaint, and several reasons which we've already gone over, but just to recap. Perhaps you fermented it for too long, right? So the length of time you ferment, obviously the more microbes will get in there. They'll break down the cell walls, and if that happens for too long, the pickles will get overly soft. Another reason why this might have happened is that the environment in which you fermented was just too warm. Remember, we want to keep it, below 80 degrees Fahrenheit if possible. If you go too far above that, again, things are going to go faster, and thus it may just have fermented faster, and it's just softer sooner than when you might expect it. Another common thing is you forget to add a tannin-rich leaf. Again, look back at the tips to see what I mean. A fig leaf, an oak leaf, apple tree leaf. These all have tannic acids in them that help support the cell walls during fermentation. And then possibly, especially if you're growing the cucumbers yourself, you want to make sure you wipe that flowering end off. There are enzymes in the flower end that can retard fermentation, so or perhaps make it go too fast. Anyway, if some of that got into the brine, it's possible it threw off the fermentation and made things too soft. Next thing is what I call hollow pickles, and typically this happens. Personally, I think it's fairly normal, but if you're starting with maybe older cucumbers, that could be a symptom where the seed membrane just dries out because you didn't start fermenting them until the breakdown process started. Now, I find these to be perfectly edible still, although obviously we want to start off with as fresh cucumber as we can. But if you get hollow pickle and everything else is fine, I say that's okay. You can enjoy those just as much. Now, cloudy brine or sediment on top of either the pickles or the bottom of the jar. Again, I don't really consider this a defect. This is actually very normal. This is just all of the microbial life forms that have come and gone. When they expire, they wind up turning into the sediment, and that's what creates the cloudiness in the brine as well as the residue. Perfectly normal, perfectly harmless. And again, I'm talking about what's under the liquid. That's different from what might be on top, which that's more likely to be yeast or potentially mold. And last but not least, one thing that might happen is that if you're making the garlic dill pickle recipe, the garlic cloves you might find turn blue or blue-green. This is actually perfectly normal. This is simply the sulfur compounds that are found in garlic reacting with the various acids that are formed during fermentation. So perfectly edible, perfectly safe, no worries. Impress your friends with your blue-green garlic. And hopefully that gives most of the things that can go wrong when you're making cucumber pickles. And hopefully none of these happen to you, but now you know what to do if they do.